Aida. I'm 21 years old and I'll be attending Fashion Institute of Technology for fine arts, for the fine arts major. I started Ashcan, I think last year, July 6th, and I've been doing that for like 8 months until like February. I came across it because like in my earlier like college career, I thought I was like interested in like doing some type of like liberal arts type major, something more creative. And then I realized the only thing that I do enjoy is just creating and drawing stuff. And with the help of like a doctor, a therapist of mine, she helped me locate Ashcan and sent out the emails, and I did the long portfolio process, and it was very much rewarding, and it's got me to where I am today. I feel like for a very long portion of my life, I've always denied myself being a creative. Like I just never imagined myself like being a painter or a sculptor or anything in that category, because I was always so like afraid of, you know, the art world itself, because it seems so scary, because there's so many people in here, and it's like, how can you come up with something new when there's probably like there's millions and millions of like artists. It took me a while to realize that creating and drawing, or whatever the case may be, I realized that that's the only thing that I find like real, true enjoyment in, and I can find myself just letting go of all the hard feelings and just let it out on the canvas or a piece of paper and just create. So it was a long journey, and I'm just starting it now in my 20th or 21st year of like living. I still have yet to really kind of develop myself as like a creator, but I can say that I'm really happy that I've started it, or finally accepted that for myself. But I chose FIT because the more research I did into it, I like the fact that it's not only just like an educational school. I had a lot of friends who went there too. Up until like their senior year, it's been very enriching, because even during the school, like professors and like faculty help students, I suppose, reach out and find internships and jobs in their fields. And because art is so like daunting and can seem scary, like on the surface of like, how do I get in there? Like, what type of work can I do? Like, I feel like I can use like all the help that I need in that environment. And also because it's not just like strictly a school dedicated to fine arts. I kind of like that. I kind of split up like the divide. You have like fashion like majors, you have graphic design majors, you have fine arts like sculpting. Like I feel like it would allow me to really dabble into like any category that I still want to like experience, like creating in, like, you know, making garments or not painting, but like probably filming, doing a short film or photography series, or just to like dabble around a bit. I think that'd be most exciting. This one is the first piece that I've made. It's a black and white still life. I used micro pens and watercolor and some charcoal and like black and white gel pens. I like the combination of really organic, super organic life, like flowers and bugs, as well as the dynamic of like objects you would consider like trash. You have like, I don't know, a rotting pepper in there, you have some like mesh wire that's been like folded and tarnished, as well as like a recyclable like can of like beer. I always enjoy the tying of like old and new. There's like elements of like old Renaissance period. You have like busts in there and like the flowers, but something that's also very like, something that makes it very modern. I suppose it's the very like flat layout, like there's kind of just spread across like the canvas, and there's not too much dimension, but yet it still kind of feels like there's a lot of like space in between, but it's pretty flat. This piece is one of my favorites. The title is called Hard Feelings. I collabed on it with Aida. Aida is one of the instructors at Ashcan. Her style is very much also abstract and very colorful and tells like very emotional stories in her work. And I feel like you can definitely see like that collaboration between the both of us in this piece. Because originally what these are, they're 3 separate images that I took, and we ended up going into Photoshop and just meshing them together until we got like this setup right here, and it was done with oil pastels and carbon paper on, I believe, oil pastel paper or chalk paper. I think it's really nice. I feel like there's a lot of like raw emotion in it. Just like, I titled it Hard Feelings because in the moment I try to learn how to incorporate like things that have been going on in my life and the things that I feel about the environment or people I socialize with. And in it you see 3 images. You have 2 people embracing each other, and then there's a figure in the back in between those 2 kind of watching them, you know, in that kind of sense of like the symbolism of just like filling a void but not exactly knowing how. And the placement of the the American Spirit box is I suppose a call out to like pop culture, but as well as kind of like a symbol of like romance, because what comes with hard feelings is just chain smoking, in my opinion. This one is also a pretty good one too. I'm also combining 2 of like my favorite, I suppose, eras in art. The piece is called Roaring Beauty, and it's supposed to be like a combination of like the Roaring 20s as well as Venus herself being, or Aphrodite being, you know, a symbol of love. And I, you know, put her in the center on like this very Art Deco-esque kind of sun, the same way she would be standing on the clam in the Birth of Venus photograph, with with a lot of elements of like Art Deco scenery that you would often see. I was also very much inspired by The Great Gatsby. It's one of my favorite books, and I just really like the artwork in it. She's a really cool symbol for me as well. I always feel like she's just taken for granted as a woman, because people often just like appreciate and admire Athena because she was like full of brains and she was so smart, but at the same time she was just really mean. But then like Aphrodite was just a figure of love and romance, and for me it just felt like someone that I was always lured to as a child. It's like this idea of just self-acceptance and like grace and beauty kind of just in one person. So yeah, I just put those 2 together and we have this lovely piece. This one is one of my favorites too. It's a sculpture I did. It's called Temptation and Self-Reflection. It's a sculpture of, again, another cigarette box, and I made it a Marlboro container, but I didn't put any of the logos on it. I put a mirror in it because I wanted it to be, initially I wanted it to like pop up, but instead I just left it open and I placed the mirror in it. And I put the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckleburg from The Great Gatsby into it. In the book, he kind of symbolizes the fact that God is always watching. And for me, it's kind of like, you know, being aware of like the bad decisions that you make. You know, you open a cigarette cart and you look at it, you know it's bad for you, you know it's going to harm you in the end, but you still choose to like smoke those cigarettes and carry on with your day. The fruits symbolize sort of call out to like the Garden of Eden and the forbidden fruit, you know, being tempted by things that are evil, essentially like smoking. And it's not so much a PSA on like don't smoke, but it's just like yes, this happens. We're aware of our bad decisions, and yet we still choose to do them. It was really exciting. I really liked putting this piece together. It's made out of plastic fruit that I painted with plaster, and the box is also painted in plaster too. Like when you hold it up, it should like line up with the eyes. Just go with that same narrative of God is always watching, essentially, or know what you're doing to yourself. It's like yay high, probably. This one was very much improvised, even down to the title, because the title is actually a line from SpongeBob. The piece is called Machinations of My Mind. The only thing that was actually like placed were the 3 small paintings at the bottom. They're oil paintings of photos that I've taken as well. Sometimes for me it's easier to just like improvise instead of like sit and plan out ideas like through and through. Like some pieces are built for that, but this one was very much just like collecting material and putting it on there, and that's essentially what I did. Like a lot of the material on this piece I found like along the road in my basement, just like random pieces of junk that I gathered and put together. And I enjoy collages, and I have fun putting them together because they always end up looking quite interesting. Like the textures of it pops out a lot. There's a lot to look at. It's not something like, I don't know, your eye could miss. It's titled Fragile Life. I initially did it for the Parsons Challenge, where you're supposed to take a piece that you already did and reimagine it into a new way. The piece that I was inspired by was this watercolor of coral. So I took that and I just decided, why don't I just make, coral out of babies as a way to, I suppose, symbolize how fragile ocean life really is and how endangered it's starting to become. Put them into containers to also represent that the ocean is not even safe to carry that on life, because there's so many coral reefs that are dying and being depleted as we speak to this day. So I just bought a bunch of babies and I glued them together into very interesting, weird shapes that to me represent what coral would look like. And I used hot glue as well to make individual pieces of coral too. Afterwards, I projected them onto this oceanscape background, and it was really exciting because this is a piece that apart from the other one, this is something that I actually planned and plotted out in my sketchbook, and to see it come alive was really thrilling and exciting because it was on paper, this idea of babies as coral, and we put them in the ocean and just project light so their shadows will look like what coral should look like. It turned out that way and it was really cool, and I had a lot of fun doing it, spending hours just gluing babies together. I wouldn't take that time back ever. It was a lot of fun. It's a self-portrait as well as a collage piece too. It's called Do What You Please because on there's a little iPhone chat bubble that says, "Do what you please, Aida," and in the bottom corner it says my response, which was, "I am." And it's kind of, I suppose it's a self-reflective piece. It's inspired a lot by the internet culture of vaporwave. I was always fond of it. I always found it very interesting. I enjoyed looking at the artwork. So I figured, why not make my own rendition of vaporwave, and why not, have some fun with that. This is another piece I collabed with Hyra, and we decided, because initially I was going to draw or put some other bust in the center, but we decided to just make myself the bust and just glass my eyes out and, incorporate all these different elements of pop culture, the LaCroix cans just pouring on me and the text bubbles of the iPhones and, the palm leaves kind of in the corner. It's very much reflective of that type of culture. I was happy to be able to make it myself. I enjoyed this piece a lot too. It's come a long, long way. There have been 2 or 3 other layers underneath this before I finally settled with this final design. I enjoy it. I think it's beautiful. This piece was inspired by the artist David Hockney. This is another image that I took that I just recreated into a still life. It was a photo I took when I was in Arizona last year in my cousin's yard. I was kind of left there the entire day by myself with her parents, so I had to make do with something, and I feel like the piece pretty much reflects that kind of not much going on out here. It's called Summer in the Suburbs. It's just really quiet, really hot. All you have is yard chairs and cacti, and it was really, I don't know, I feel like it gathers there's a lot of peace in this photo. To create the different textures with the brick wall and the cacti and the grass, we used different amounts of modeling paste that we mixed with paint, or I mixed with paint, and just sponged it on to create that texture. And I like that it's kind of separated into 3 layers. Very reminiscent of Hockney's work, in my opinion, which I enjoy, that kind of simplistic view of things. This one is called The Garden. It's the first sculpted piece that I did. I had this little, this weird blocky robotic figure that I found somewhere. I figured why not make a piece around him, so I gathered some clay, I built his head up some more, I gave him some facial features, and this piece was also pretty much improvised too. I just knew that I wanted just a single man or single block creature in a room of mirrors. From there I just went with whatever. A lot of the material that I've used is pretty much recycled in every piece in some type of way, shape, or form. It all kind of syncs together. So some pieces that you'll see in this one, you'll see in the other improvised work. Yeah, I just gathered clay. I bought some material from like Michael's, like wings and tiny flowers, and glued it on him and, you know, set him up in his own little world. There's no real story behind this one. He's just reminds me of a Little Big Planet figure. Little Big Planet is this video game for PS3. It's just in his own small world. This one is, I suppose, what it is, a self-portrait. It's a photo that I took of myself. Just did it on watercolor. Initially the photo was actually more like vignette, kind of less blue, less yellow, but we edited it to kind of create that cohesive feel with the rest of my portfolio, I suppose. There's a lot of like tones of like blue and yellow in it, so I'm supposed to upkeep that theme. It's a photo I took with acrylic on canvas and just painted it. Just went to town. This was the first painting that I worked on at Ashcan. I feel like, you know, still lifes are very, I suppose, simple in nature, but I don't know, I feel like a lot of elements go into really setting up a still life, like the color of the objects that you use, or the way that you place the objects, the lighting that you choose. Again, I went for a more kind of like cool, dark kind of setting. Kind of feels more romantic with the candlelight and the flowers. The mask is just, I don't know, I really just enjoy elements of faces in my pieces, so I just put that in there. So I figured the blue just creates a tone of this melancholy candle trying to warm it up. This piece was fun, but it gave me a lot of trouble towards the end. When you use a lot of like white or like uncolored pieces, you have to work with the shadows that other pieces give off onto it and the colors that are given off onto it too. So it's not just plain white, you have to like throw in tints of like yellow and blue and try not to darken it too much. My approach when it comes to figure drawing is I enjoy some more like Picasso approach. It's less traditional kind of figure drawing lines and more kind of like animated, be it with color, be it with the shadowing, how the face is lit up and set up. I find it easier to like differentiate shadows and like highlights when I use like different shades of like oil pastels or colors. The shadow on his leg over there is red while the highlight is green here. It's enjoyable to look at too. I think that's probably why I do it too, and it's a nice easy flow when you're using an oil pastel on paper and it just glides. This one's a more traditional nude figure. I don't really follow like traditional, like, I suppose, drawing techniques. I feel like it's more to it than just drawing what you see, because everyone has a different way of seeing things. Even though everyone has the same model in front of them, like, there's different aspects about that model that you could gather. If I had advice for anyone, number one, don't stress on time, because you have 8 months to put together a portfolio, and that's more than enough actually, because I remember like I was in August or September and I was already just like feeling stir crazy, because I was like, oh man, I have like 10 more pieces to do, like how will I ever complete this? The thing is, it's all about just like self-discipline. If it's something that you really want to do, be it, you know, apply to art school, like you're going to, I feel like your mind is naturally just going to set you up down that road. Time is of the essence when you're trying to apply to school, be it, especially in art school that requires like, you know, material to show for yourself. But I wouldn't worry so hard on time. I would just advise you to use it wisely. Like, come to Ashcan on time, work all through your day, rest up for your hour, come back tomorrow and just do it all over again. I mean, yeah, it's definitely easier said than done, because you're gonna find yourself being distracted, but in the grand scheme of things, like, it's your portfolio getting into school. And advice into getting into FIT. I feel like FIT definitely seeks out individualists. Like, I feel like they wouldn't want to see conventional work, they'd want to see something that's out there, and be it that they're growing their fine arts and arts department, they definitely want to see more kind of, I suppose, not so much extravagant pieces, but pieces that are more personal or more emotional, like full of feeling. Cliche as it gets is be yourself, but the advice is easier said than done. Although I feel like it's somewhere established, I still have yet to really get to or find that voice exactly, but I know that for myself, I incorporate a lot of like feelings of melancholy into my work, be it the writing that I do or like the photos that I take or the colors that I choose in my piece. Like I find myself wanting to incorporate a lot more emotions about myself rather than like statements on like the world. Even though that'd be something nice to tackle, I don't find myself ready for that. As of right now, it's just more so just kind of putting your breath or your life into it. That's what I try to do. Even when I'm like doodling in my like sketchbook, I find myself doing things that feel really close to home about what I'm feeling in the moment. I suppose it was more so natural rather than like encouraged. Like, not to say my like parents weren't for the arts, it's never something that I'd never like discussed with them. I feel like my experience with art has always been more natural rather than like showed to me, like it just kind of happened.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below to stay updated and for more tips on how to make a great art portfolio.